Hi, everyone.
Hey, great to be here.
Today we're diving into The Power of the Powerless by Václav Havel. Such a powerful, timeless piece.
Definitely. Even though it came out of Czechoslovakia's late 1970s, sevens Euro-esque climate, it's one of those works that still speaks right to our current sense of personal integrity and truth.
Right, it's not just history, it's a mirror. So, can we start with the big picture? What's the central idea behind the book?
At its heart, Havel's essay argues that truth itself can be a form of resistance. He's describing a post-totalitarian system, basically, not the old-fashioned dictatorship with constant visible violence, but a world maintained through quiet, everyday lies. People repeat slogans they don't believe, participate in rituals they know are hollow, and by doing that, they keep the machinery of power running.
So, it's ordinary life keeping the system alive, not tanks or soldiers.
Exactly. That's the unsettling part. It's not fear alone that keeps everyone obedient, it's habit and the comfort of pretending. The system draws energy from millions of small acts of false, people just wanting to avoid trouble.
He uses the figure of the greengrocer, right?
Yes, the greengrocer is Havel's perfect illustration. Imagine a shopkeeper who hangs a sign in his window saying, "Workers of the world, unite." He doesn't believe in it, but it's expected. He wants peace of mind, not attention. That single gesture, so small, is actually what allows power to flow.
And if the greengrocer took the sign down, that tiny moment would be revolutionary.
Precisely. Removing the slogan means rejecting the lie. Suddenly, his act exposes the fact that everyone else is pretending too. Power depends on that shared pretending. Once it's revealed, cracks appear.
That's incredible. It feels psychological more than political.
You nailed it. Havel's analysis is really about human existence, about what happens when truth and daily life separate. When everyone performs belief instead of living it, society becomes a stage play where nobody knows the script's purpose anymore.
So he's saying ideology itself becomes a kind of mask?
Exactly. In the section on ideology, Havel shows how it stops being a conviction. Instead, it's just performance. You don't have to believe the slogans, you just have to use their language. It's a mechanism that lets people avoid personal responsibility.
Almost like people get a ready made vocabulary to hide behind?
Yes, that's a great way to put it. Ideology translates fear, ambition, and the need to survive into pretty phrases about peace or progress. It feels moral but removes accountability. And once everyone speaks that language, truth feels awkward, even dangerous.
It reminds me of corporate mission statements that sound noble but don't mean anything.
Havel would totally agree. He was warning not just about communist ideology, but about any environment where empty words replace honesty. He saw how living within the lie corrodes human connection. When even friendship must wear a mask, you lose real trust.
That phrase, living within the lie, hits hard. What does Havel suggest instead?
His alternative is living in truth. He calls it a moral act of defiance, basically aligning your words and actions with what you genuinely believe. It's not loud rebellion. It's quiet integrity.
So living honestly becomes political?
Yes, though Havel says it's political only secondarily. First, it's just being human. But in a system built on lies, sincerity automatically threatens power. For someone like the greengrocer, telling the truth to himself already shifts the balance. He might face loss or suspicion, but he recovers his dignity.
That's brave, but it's so personal. Is this what Havel means by moral power?
Exactly. He argues that freedom starts internally. Systems survive because people surrender responsibility. Once they reclaim it, even quietly, power loses its oxygen. The powerless discover that they're not powerless at all.
I love that. Dignity becomes resistance.
That's his point. Dignity isn't pride. It's knowing your life is grounded in truth, independent of reward. When that spreads, fear loses grip. Havel saw this among underground activists and Charter 77 signatories, people who simply refuse to lie anymore.
He really saw honesty as contagious.
He did. Living in truth, he said, creates parallel structures, small, authentic spaces where people can interact without pretense. Think of music clubs, discussion groups, or churches that operated outside official control. These places were little islands where real human relationships could reemerge.
So dissent wasn't about overthrowing power directly, but about building real community.
Yes, and that's key. Havel didn't see dissent as just shouting against authority. It was about living differently, with conscience. Those genuine communities proved that human cooperation didn't need ideology's permission.
I bet those communities were fragile, though.
They were, but they were incredibly meaningful. People found friendship and creative expression there. They reminded each other they were citizens, not subjects. And that sense of solidarity slowly undermined fear.
It's interesting that he connects moral authenticity to political renewal.
He believed politics couldn't be healthy without it. Democracy, for him, depended on moral people, not party programs. If everyone hides behind necessity or ideology, even free institutions become hollow.
So freedom isn't a gift from a constitution, it's a habit of conscience.
Exactly. He says freedom is an attitude. It starts when one person decides to take responsibility for truth. Then, as more people do, society changes from the inside.
That makes total sense. You can't legislate sincerity.
Right, laws should reflect a moral foundation, not substitute for it. Havel saw totalitarianism as a symptom of people giving up that foundation. His remedy wasn't new rulers but moral renewal.
That connects to how he describes repression's limits, doesn't it?
Yes. He observes that fear can keep people quiet for a while, but it can't create conviction. A regime can imprison bodies, but it can't imprison the consciousness that's awake. Once enough people act from truth, repression cracks from within.
I love that he calls truth a limit upon repression. Such a poetic concept.
It really is. He'd seen it working. Polish workers, Hungarian intellectuals, East German, and Soviet dissidents all discovering that speaking truth reshapes history faster than coercion. He called solidarity the ethical counterforce to ideological unity.
That word, solidarity, obviously connects to Poland's movement.
Definitely. Havel viewed it as more than a union, it was human moral cooperation. When people supported each other in honesty, fear lost its point. The future already began in those small, truthful acts.
It's beautiful and subtle, right? Not revolution through violence, but through conscience.
Absolutely. Havel says the real revolution isn't for ideology but through humanity. When people rediscover ethical responsibility, politics naturally becomes humane again. The change doesn't start in parliament, it starts in how we speak and treat one another day to day.
That feels surprisingly relevant now. We don't live in a dictatorship, but we still face collective untruths.
He actually foresaw that. In the final sections, he urges readers everywhere to examine their own comfortable lies, whether political, professional, or cultural. Living in truth applies anytime we compromise integrity for convenience.
So the lesson isn't limited to his historical moment.
Exactly. He says every society has room for living within the lie, and every honest choice creates cracks where truth can come through. The powerless are just people rediscovering their hidden moral power.
He's surprisingly hopeful for someone writing from such darkness.
Totally. He admits truth won't triumph quickly, but insists that without truth, no triumph is genuine. Hope, in his view, is to live authentically even when outcomes seem uncertain.
It's fascinating how spiritual his language gets, truth as something almost sacred.
Yes, he treats truth as the language of being itself. It's not just factual correctness, it's aligning existence with reality. When people trust that again, society revives.
Do you think his message resonates beyond totalitarian contexts like workplace culture or digital life?
Absolutely. Think about how constant performance defines social media or corporate environments. Havel's insight that ideology can be replaced by bureaucratic or commercial masks fits perfectly. The same moral courage applies to say what's real instead of what's safe.
So, living in truth today might mean refusing fake enthusiasm or admitting uncertainty.
Exactly. Even something that small counts. Havel's greengrocer could be any of us. The employee who questions a hollow slogan, the citizen who refuses to share misinformation, the student who speaks honestly instead of echoing trends.
I love that practical way to look at it. It's less about overthrowing and more about awakening.
That's Havel's gift, making political freedom feel like moral daily practice. Once you live in truth, you create space for others to do it too, and community reappears naturally.
He also mentions that such truth builds parallel worlds. That feels relevant to art and creativity.
Yes, totally. Art, conversation, and imagination are natural forms of living in truth. In his era, underground writers and musicians used creativity as ways to breathe authenticity back into public life. They weren't just making art, they were restoring humanity.
That line about fear becoming ashamed of itself is so striking.
Right, because truth doesn't just oppose fear, it embarrasses it. When people act truthfully together, fear looks small. No authoritarian system can survive genuine laughter and sincere friendship for long.
You can feel how much faith he had in ordinary people.
He really did. He wasn't talking about heroes, he was talking about workers, clerks, anyone who quietly refuses unreality. Each simple act becomes part of a parallel polis, as later thinkers called it, a moral microcosm of a freer world.
That reminds me, he says liberation begins where authenticity enters human relations.
Exactly. When you treat someone sincerely instead of with slogans, you've already weakened coercion. Authentic connection is the seed of freedom because it breaks the language of control.
So truth acts like a contagion of trust.
That's a great metaphor. Trust spreads because it feels real. Once truth surfaces, people recognize it instantly, like remembering what fresh air feels like after years indoors.
It's almost psychological therapy for society.
That's an excellent way to see it. Havel sees collapse of conscience as sickness. Living in truth is like healing the civic body through conscience instead of ideology.
I find it amazing that he wrote all this under surveillance.
Yes, and that adds weight. He wasn't theorizing in comfort, he was living it. His decision to write in truth was already an act of defiance, proof that conscience can't be legislated away.
What struck you most after reading it?
Honestly, the simplicity. He doesn't tell us to fight or plot revolutions. He just says, don't lie. Live attentively. It sounds small, but it's huge. That's how change begins, from attention to conscience.
It's refreshing in an age of cynicism.
Absolutely. When cynicism becomes normal, truth feels radical again. Havel invites us to rediscover moral seriousness without dogma.
There's also something resilient in his approach. He believes truth eventually wins because lies exhaust themselves.
Yes, lies require constant maintenance. Truth, once spoken, sustains itself naturally. His whole insight is that moral reality doesn't vanish, it waits for courage to release it.
And that idea of courage through solidarity, how does Havel define it?
He sees solidarity as mutual fidelity to truth. It's not just support, it's shared conscience. When people uphold one another in honesty, they form communities that power can't fully penetrate.
So solidarity replaces fear with connection.
Exactly. Fear isolates, truth connects. And connection itself is political because it restores collective responsibility.
It's kind of hopeful chaos, truth scattered everywhere until it shapes new order.
Beautifully put. For Havel, post-totalitarian society collapses when truth becomes general practice, not a violent overthrow, but a quiet accumulation of integrity.
How do you think this book speaks to younger generations today?
I think it asks them to notice the little hypocrisies they accept. You don't need oppression to fall into conformity. Sometimes consumer culture or peer pressure does the same. Havel's challenge is timeless. Be awake, don't surrender your conscience just to fit in.
Yeah, truth can start in a chat room or an art project, any place people choose sincerity.
Exactly. It's as local as daily conversation. Living truthfully heals the gap between what we know privately and what we show publicly.
And his final note, he ends on personal exhortation, right?
He does. He says, live attentively, live in truth, and give hope meaning beyond slogans. He reminds us that civic renewal begins with the single act of refusing to lie.
It's so human.
That's what makes it lasting. He wrote from Czechoslovakia's darkness but aimed at universal condition. Wherever people live comfortably within falsehoods, the same moral remedy applies.
I like that he doesn't promise quick triumphs.
True.
He's realistic. Truth doesn't win fast, but without it, no victory is real. Patience and authenticity become political virtues.
It's almost spiritual activism.
Yes, activism of being instead of shouting.
The transformation happens when existence aligns with reality.
So, summing up, living in truth releases moral power, which slowly erodes systems of lies.
Exactly. Every person who awakens conscience adds to that invisible current. The powerless are powerful because truth itself can't be coerced or defeated long term.
That's a hopeful takeaway.
Very hopeful. It means we all have agency even when society feels cynical.
I guess we can wrap up with that thought. Any last recommendation for listeners?
Just this. Read The Power of the Powerless not as history, but as guidance for your own life. Wherever you face pressure to pretend, choose reality. Havel shows that honesty isn't weakness, it's the quiet foundation of freedom.
Perfect. Live attentively, live in truth, couldn't say it better. Thanks for the conversation.
Thank you. Always a joy to talk about Havel's timeless humanity.